A review of Jalen Hurts' first few weeks as the starter, what the Eagles need to do this offseason to get back to Super Bowl status, a look at the first week in the NBA, and much more. I'm Austin Bennet, and this is the Philly Cheesesteak.
Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things.
Your Philadelphia Eagles, our Philadelphia Eagles have been eliminated from playoff contention. It is done, finito, right now, courtesy of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, welcome back to the Philly Cheesesteak. First thing I want to do is apologize. I have not been as consistent as I would really like to with these podcasts. I can go on about excuses all day if I really want to, but I'm not going to do that. But something to look forward to. I'm becoming an Eagle Scout super soon. End of January, I will be receiving that award if everything goes well. So once that's completed, I'm going to have a lot more time on my hands to do these, and hopefully after that we can get back to doing these every single week. That is the goal. But we're here now, and we're here to talk about the last basically month for the Eagles. Since our last episode, I guess someone in the front office was listening to the podcast, and the Eagles have decided that Jalen Hurts is now the starter. He came in week 13, I want to say, against Green Bay in the third quarter, and the Eagles have not looked back since. He's looked decent. He's looked decent out there as the starter so far. Much better than Carson Wentz has been this season. I think we can all agree to that. So his stats since that game against the Packers, he's 67 for 125, which is a 54% completion rate, which is not bad for a rookie. He's averaging 239 yards per game passing. That does not include any of his rushing yards. He has 6 touchdowns passing, 3 interceptions, and 1 rushing touchdown as well to add to that. So not too terrible of stats for 3 starts for a rookie. So let's talk about the pros and cons. Let's talk about what we've seen, because now we have 3 weeks under his belt. We can really understand what he is all about. So here are my takeaways for him. So the positives. He's a mobile quarterback. This is what we had with Carson Wentz his rookie season and for 13 weeks of 2017. A guy who can get out of the pocket, he can throw the ball, and he can run if he needs to, which is great. It's something every team is really looking for nowadays in today's NFL. A guy like a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, a Russell Wilson. Those kind of guys who aren't afraid to run the ball and make plays on their own, which is always a good thing to have. So we've seen a little glimpse of that from him, which is good. We've seen that from him in college as well. It's not anything like a surprise like Josh Allen kind of was. But yeah, so far that's something I've noticed that was nice. I talked one of my first episodes, I think it was that game against the 49ers, how we saw Carson Wentz kind of get back to his running ways in that game, which was nice, and it turned into some fast-tempo offense and was just a positive impact for the team. Another thing I'm seeing, compared to Carson Wentz, I'm really doing these things in comparison to Carson Wentz this year, and another thing I noticed was he's not afraid. He's not afraid. Carson Wentz, and you can't blame him, right? He tore his ACL. The guy's going to be a little scared. It's like bringing an 8-year-old to a Little League game, right? He gets hit by a pitch. The next time he goes at the bat, what's he going to be scared of? The ball. It makes sense. I don't blame Carson Wentz at all whatsoever, and I think that the team hasn't done a great job of helping him out with the offensive line. I mean, they said, we've got like a 40-year-old here. He's already guaranteed to go to the Hall of Fame. He could retire. He's sitting pretty. He has a ring. But hey, instead of drafting somebody or finding someone in free agency or something like that, let's pay the guy, 40 years old, $8 million for 1 year just so he can probably get injured again, that or get a bunch of false starts for us. That's what they did for Carson Wentz with Jason Peters. So I don't blame him at all whatsoever for being afraid to be out there sometimes. He's gone through a lot in just 5 years. But Jalen Hurts, he's not afraid. He's not afraid to make his own plays and to kind of improv out there, if you will. And then another thing, he can throw the ball away and avoid sacks. That's something Carson Wentz somehow struggled with this entire season. And I don't really understand it. It's really not that tough of a concept. But he just never did it, and it was very frustrating as a fan. So to see a quarterback be able to do that in green is very refreshing for the Eagles. And another thing I didn't add to my list that I'm looking at here, but I want to talk about is he's not forcing plays. And that kind of ties into, throwing the ball away and stuff and running. But Carson Wentz, the biggest reason why he had so many interceptions, so many turnovers, is because it was either the offensive line collapsed or he tried to make something out of nothing. And that never works in a professional, at a professional level of anything. Trying to make something out of nothing never works. So it's good to see that Jalen Hurts is so far avoiding that. But let's look at the downside. Let's look at what he is struggling with. Two things I really wrote down. Number one, he plays like a rookie, which isn't bad for a rookie, right? That's normal. It's expected. It's anticipated. But, overall at an NFL level, he could be playing better, obviously. But, I don't blame the guy. He's been taking, scouting team snaps with this team for the majority of the year. He's a rookie. He doesn't know a ton about the system and isn't really accustomed to the starting players. He doesn't really practice with them all that often. So he's playing like a rookie. He's playing like like if you combine the skill level of a rookie quarterback and a backup quarterback, that's who you have right now, which is expected of him. And it's not a bad thing necessarily in this scenario. And then the second thing, it's something the whole team really, in my opinion, has struggled with. It's turnovers. He's fumbling the ball. He's 6 touchdowns passing to 3 interceptions. That's not a great ratio. It's better than Carson Wentz's, but it's still not a great ratio. And again, that's just something that, rookies have to deal with and grow grow on, and get better at, is just learning what it's like to be a quarterback in the NFL. So here's my goal. Here's my goal for him. We talked about the potential for him to be a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, a Russell Wilson. And what I want for him to be is a Russell Wilson, obviously, because, Russell Wilson has been the most successful of those 3 quarterbacks. But I don't want a Cam Newton, right? I don't want a Cam Newton. We had a low-key version of a Cam Newton, Russell Wilson with Carson Wentz. And it was great. It brought this team to a championship. Listen, we can have this debate about hypotheticals, but I don't think the Eagles make the Super Bowl if Carson Wentz isn't the starter for those first 13 weeks that year, right? Nick Foles in that system wouldn't have happened because he may still have had a great 8 weeks, right? But it would have been the first 8 weeks of the NFL, and then defenses start getting used to what they're doing, the RPOs, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, we had a Cam Newton, Russell Wilson type Carson Wentz, 2016, 2017, really just 2017, and then he gets injured because of it, scrambling. So that's not what I want to see. I don't want a running back that can throw. I want a quarterback that can run. I want a Russell Wilson. When's the last time Russell Wilson was out for a season? Hasn't happened. The guy isn't out there getting 200 yards rushing a game, But what he's able to do is get out of the pocket, keep the play alive, and make good throws off of the run, and he can scramble when he needs to. That's what every NFL team is looking for in a quarterback. That's what they're trying to get with Lamar Jackson. That's kind of what they have with Patrick Mahomes, and that's what the Seahawks have with Russell Wilson. So that is my if I could have any quarterback, to have Jalen Hurts grow up to be, that's who I want him to be. I want him to be a Russell Wilson. So let's go back to that Super Bowl 52 season. We did this last episode a little bit. We looked at the differences between the 2020 Eagles team and the 2017 Eagles team. Now I want to talk about how we got there. How we got from 2017 winning a championship ring to 2020 going 4-10-1 and being eliminated from the playoffs. So I have 3 points here that I want to talk about. First thing is coaching staff. That's obvious. Every team's coaching staff changes in some shape or form every year. And I think a great example of what the Eagles coaching staff was like from then to now, from a championship to this point, is very similar to LSU in college football. Theirs was obviously more rapid, But you look at the difference between LSU this year and last year. Last year they lose one game. Joe Burrow has arguably the greatest single season performance in college football history as a quarterback, and literally like half of the coaching staff for that team either moved to some position in the NFL or another college team. They all upgraded, which is that's what it's there for, right? College is there so that coaches can move up in the ranks and players can move up to the NFL. That's what it's all about. But they lost so much, and player depth as well. They lost a lot. Losing your quarterback is a big deal, but they lost so much in player depth. They lost so much in coaching staff. There was so much new to the team, and they just didn't do as well. Simple as that. And I think maybe not from players' perspective, the Eagles changed in that way, but coaching perspective, absolutely. Frank Reich, I don't know how you say his name correctly. I think it's Wright. He moved to Indianapolis to be the head coach of the Colts. Honestly, because of the fact that Nick Foles was able to take over and still win the Super Bowl for the Eagles that year, I'm not going to give credit to a player for winning that championship. At the end of the day, if I have to choose one person to give credit to for that championship, it's Frank Reich. I mean, the fact that he was the offensive coordinator at the time for the Eagles, in case you didn't know, he was the play caller, all that, and what he was able to do in such a short span of time with Nick Foles to get him integrated into the offensive system and set him up for success was absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, and you saw the process develop. Those first few weeks with Nick Foles as quarterback were not great. That's why they were underdogs first week of the playoffs, right? You go back and you look at that game against the Raiders in 2017, Nick Foles was struggling. This whole team was struggling. The only thing that we had going for us that game was Jake Elliott, field goals, and the running game. Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, all those guys. But to go from that ugly performance and then 2-3 weeks later, I guess if you jump to the Vikings game 4 weeks later against the Vikings, 38 straight points. Nick Foles out there playing like he's Patrick Mahomes. I mean the guy was just dropping dimes everywhere. I mean, you could have told me that he didn't have a single incompletion that game, and I would believe you. He was on fire. The whole team's absolutely on fire. They go down early 7-0, and then there's a pick six, and they just never stopped. 38 unanswered points. But I think Frank Reich, if you choose one person, is the whole reason they won the Super Bowl. And so losing him was a huge loss to the team, both offensively and I think overall, because he had such a big impact on this team. He made the offense what it is, and that allowed the defense to get rest and play better. And I think another reason why we won that Super Bowl is because of how rested and ready our defense was constantly. We had the greatest defensive line rotation ever, which allowed our defense to stay strong, stay healthy, and stay strong in the middle of the game. And that's why I think Brandon Graham was able to have that strip sack in the fourth quarter against Tom Brady and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And that's what sealed the game for them. I don't think that happens if you have the same 4 or 5 guys out there the entire game. That doesn't happen. So that was a big deal. And I think another thing that's changed with the coaching staff with the Eagles these last 3 years is Jim Schwartz. Like, what the heck, man? All of a sudden, he just forgets how to blitz. Like, the guy never blitzes anymore. When's the last time the Eagles have blitzed and gotten a sack? Tell me, please. Especially with the limited linebacker core we have now already, with Singleton and Duke Riley, and we've already talked well enough about Nathan Gary. If you guys don't know my stance on him, ugh. But there's a reason our linebackers stink. We have literally the cheapest linebacker core in the league. It makes sense. But you would think with the linebacker core that cheap, you wouldn't really trust them with coverage and stuff. And instead you would just blitz like crazy, especially with the talented defensive line you have with Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and Derek Barnett and Malik Jackson and Javon Hargrave. But no. And that's a huge reason why they lose that game to the Steelers. The Steelers game was a close game. They only lost by 10 points at the end, I believe, but he was even closer during the game. Instead, you have your linebackers running out trying to defend guys, and Chase Claypool ends up scoring 4 touchdowns on you. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. If you put me out there on the Eagles sideline with a headset and like literally just pictures of the Madden plays for defensive coverage, right? I'm gonna be honest. I think I could do a better job than Jim Schwartz. Call me crazy, and listen, that's a win-win scenario for the Eagles. Hold up, I'm trying to think about this now. Give me a second. Hear me out. I should be the defensive coordinator for the Eagles. I work minimum wage right now, so they wouldn't have to pay me a lot for me to be satisfied, and I would make better play call decisions for the Eagles. Hey, there we go. All right, I'm going to put in my application tomorrow. But for real, though, like, Jim Schwartz has done a terrible job, and I think, honestly, over all the players and all the coaching staff, he's going to be the first one to go come Monday when this season is over. And I will not miss him, to be completely honest with you guys. Second point as to why this team has really just plummeted since that Super Bowl victory is holding on to players. We have, I think it's like the third oldest roster in the NFL. We're just holding on to players for too long. Like, we think, oh, you have a Super Bowl ring? Dang, you're qualified. Let's extend you for 3 years, right? I mean, we saw it with Jason Peters. Man is ancient. He could literally walk into the Hall of Fame today and they would accept him, right? Like, he doesn't need anything to prove. He doesn't need anything to prove. We signed him on an $8 million 1-year deal for a guy who literally stands there and then gets injured. That's it. He didn't do anything special this year except stand there, hold the guy, and get injured. That's it. Another example. Alshon Jeffrey has a solid year. His first year with the Eagles, 2017, when they win the Super Bowl. He was a solid wide receiver 1. He was, he's just solid. I mean, he took good coverage. Took the good cornerbacks away from the other receivers so that Zach Ertz could play well, and what's the guy who's now retired, who had a great Super Bowl game? I forget his name. But my point is, he allowed the other players to get open, really. If he wasn't catching the ball, he made the opportunity to where other players would. You look at like Corey Clement, that Super Bowl game, he actually did a great job receiving as a running back, and partially because of that is because Alshon Jeffrey was attracting a lot of the coverage. So after that season, instead of saying, all right, man, we traded for you, so we want to get some value out of you, right? We want to keep you with this team. We think you had a great season, but you're a little old, right? You're like, oh, is he in his 30s by now? He probably is. In your 30s, you're solid. Let's give you, I don't know, a 2-year, $24 million extension. That's reasonable. That's reasonable in the wide receiver market nowadays. That's a reasonable length extension. Instead, this crazy team says, you know what? Heck, 4 years, $52 million. Let me ask you, other than a catch last week against the Cowboys for a touchdown, what the heck has Alshon Jeffrey done in the last 2 years other than get injured? Nothing. He's done absolutely squat. And it's the same thing as Jason Peters. You're paying them like crazy because they have a ring and because you feel obligated to stay with them, and they haven't done anything for you. They're old. They're sitting there. They're getting injured. That's why this team struggles with injuries so much. And listen, like, you look at other players, like even young players. I'll use a young player example here. Rodney McLeod. I love the guy. Think he has so much potential. Think he's great. He's torn his ACL. He's got countless concussions. He's got an injury in every body in his bone at one point, right? Like, at what point does this team say, we already deal with enough injuries. We probably shouldn't stick with the guy who's been injured with season-ending injuries multiple times. But they did that with Jason Peters. They did that with Alshon Jeffrey. They've done it with Rodney McLeod. And, I mean, there's more names I can put out there as well if I need to. Guy on the offensive line. Lane Johnson. He hasn't been playing enough this year for me to remember his name. Lane Johnson gotten injured a lot. Now that's a bit of an exception because he's shown that he can get back from bad injuries like Achilles and stuff. And he is like all-star, like all-team, like all-pro level. That one kind of makes sense. Alshon Jeffrey was not all-pro level. Rodney McLeod is not an all-pro level. Jason Peters was at one point maybe an all-pro level, but now he's like 4,100. And he just can't do it anymore. So holding on to players is a big issue for this team as well. And another one, and this one's kind of obvious, and this is the one that everyone kind of points at the most among Eagles fans, is bad draft picks. Howie Roseman, let's be real, he just does a terrible job. And I think another issue is I just don't feel like there's anyone in the front office that would do a better job either, which kind of stinks. But I mean, I don't have a lot to talk about this. We've seen the history with players picked. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside this year, Nelson Aguilar, even Jalen Hurts in a way was a bad pick because when you just extended a quarterback for 4 years, $128 million, and you have a quarterback like Nate Sudfeld who's been in the system for 4 years now, and if you really needed to, in a pickle, for one game, had to win a game after Carson Wentz, let's say he stubs his toe or gets a minor concussion, can't play for the rest of the game. If you really needed him to against a mediocre team, he could do that. But no, with the second round draft pick, instead of trading down or trading away for a player or anything like that, if there wasn't a good pick for him, no, they picked Jalen Hurts. Now, has he won him a couple games this season? Yes. He had a good win against the Saints. Did that help this team at all this year? No, it didn't. It only created a quarterback controversy. Jalen Hurts, who knows? He might be the future of the Eagles. I hope so. In that case, it'd be a better draft pick than I thought. But I really think that for the time being, it's only created issues. So, and it's almost a trend for all Philadelphia teams, these bad draft picks. Another prime example would be the 76ers with Nerlens Noel and with Markelle Fultz. I mean, I don't know if it's bad luck or bad choices or a combination of both. I think for the Sixers, it was definitely a lot of bad luck. Like, when you draft a guy number 2 overall, and then all of a sudden he forgets how to shoot a basketball, like, that one's just beyond me. That one's like, okay, you can't really prepare for that. But J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, or not J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I'm thinking of the wrong guy. Jalen Reagor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Nelson Aguilar over other guys that were available on the board, like, that one was kind of like, come on now. Like, there's obviously better choices. And I think it's also kind of a thing of, like, trying to be fancy. Like, trying to find a diamond in the rough when, like, there's, like, a solid player you can rely on that's not going to be superstar level, right? But like he's gonna for sure like help the team. I think like you can't be out here like thinking you're outplaying everybody, outsmarting everybody, and taking some no name that one day is gonna blow up out of nowhere. That's just not how it works. And Howie Roseman just needs to do a better job. And I think we're gonna talk about this game next week against Washington and why I don't think, how I know they will lose next week, and they're going to get, hopefully, pending some other games, a top 5 draft pick, and I sincerely hope that they take Micah Parsons. He's a linebacker out of Penn State, so, I am biased in that sense, but we just got done talking about how they have the cheapest linebacker core in the NFL and how that will never work. But you get a guy on a good rookie contract like Micah Parsons, a guy who has proved himself in college football. He didn't play this year. He opted out because of coronavirus reasons. But he's a great kid, works his butt off, and super duper talented. He's going to be probably a top 5, top 6 pick in this draft anyway. So if you're there, take the guy. You've had good history in the past few years with Penn State picks. You look at guys like Chris Godwin over in Tampa Bay. You look at Miles Sanders here in Philly. You look at Saquon Barkley with the Giants. You can even go as far back as Sean Lee. And Trace McSorley too. Got to throw that guy in, Everyone loves Trace McSorley. But yeah, that's if I could have them taking any player in this draft, I want them taking Micah Parsons. So hopefully they can secure that number 5 pick. And I would love to see that happen on draft day. So let's move on. Let's move on to next week against Washington. For some insane reason, NBC has decided to pick this game up as Sunday Night Football, so I am sorry to all the other Eagles fans out there with me. Sunday night, we are going to have to endure this horrific game in which the Eagles will lose, and they're going to lose because of 2 reasons. Number 1, if they win, for an insane reason, they win this game on Sunday against the football team, Washington is eliminated from the playoffs. And therefore, the winner between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys will decide who wins the NFC East. And chances are the Cowboys are probably going to win that game. And if you're an outsider, if you're not an Eagles fan and you're listening in on this episode and you don't know how the hatred system works for Eagles fans, it varies fan to fan. I would say it's probably based on where you currently live. If you live in Philly, you probably locally just hate the Giants more simply because of the close proximity. But I think at a national level, especially someone like me living in Atlanta, I certainly hate the Dallas Cowboys the most. Like, I despise them. And then it's the Giants, and then it's the football team. Like, you know, with Washington, it's like they're almost the innocent ones. Like, there's not a ton you can hate on them for. You just hate on them because they're there, right? With the Giants, you just have more of a rivalry, Miracle in the Meadowlands, all that stuff. And then the Dallas Cowboys, like, they're just nasty. Like, what team in the NFL likes the Cowboys? Let alone, like that is just kind of universal. So that's why that's why Eagles fans dislike him. That's the tier list. So if I would have to pick any team in the NFC East other than the Eagles to win the division, it would be Washington, especially with like the quarterback situation they have right now too with Dwayne Haskins. I'm not gonna get into all that crap because that's what it is, crap. But I would definitely want them to be the winners over. I wouldn't want them to be the winners, period, but I would want them to be the winners over the Cowboys and Giants. So that's the number 1 reason. And then the second reason is it would just logically make 0 sense to win. Because you're eliminated from the playoffs. There's absolutely 0 you can get out of winning this game because in college football, when it's like a 2-10 team against a 10-2 team or a 12-0 team, it's always like we can beat this 12-0 team and ruin their chances at the playoffs, But like, in this scenario, why would you want to ruin Washington's chances and give the Cowboys an opportunity to get to the playoffs? You don't want that. So, not only is there that factor, but also they're eliminated from the playoffs. They're already, a top. I think they've guaranteed a top 8 draft pick at this point. Why not shoot for as high as you can get? Why not lose this game and try to get a top 5 pick? Like that just it's smart because you can't make the playoffs. And it's in my opinion, it is completely different from tanking, right? Tanking is when you go into it week 1, week 4, early on when you're still both mathematically and realistically in playoff contention and saying, listen, we're just going to lose. We're just going to lose for the heck of it and get a good draft pick. Like what the Jets did, except, they messed it up somehow. They messed it up. But in this scenario, it's just losing the smart way, I guess. It's saying there's no point in us winning. There's absolutely 0 we get out of it. But there's something we can get out of it if we lose. So we're taking the smart decision, right? I think another example could have been this year, the Falcons. They start 0-4. They fire their head coach and their general manager. At that point, like, you look at this draft class and the talent involved with Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. You got Matt Ryan, right? You got Matt Ryan for 2 more years. He's old. He's not looking great. He's mediocre. You need a quarterback at some point. Why not just go all the way and go 0-16, 2-14, something like that? And what's the worst thing that can happen? You get Justin Fields. Oh darn, he's so much worse than Trevor Lawrence. Like, obviously Trevor Lawrence is the better quarterback, but Justin Fields is not shabby. So I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they all of a sudden decided to start winning, and it just makes no sense to me. I guess it was the interim head coach saying, I want to keep my job, y'all better start winning some games, which he's done. He's done a really good job, honestly, with these Falcons. Even though they still have a losing record under his coaching, I just feel like I've seen more life out of them, especially defensively, which is crazy because Dan Quinn was supposed to be a great defensive head coach. But yeah, that really didn't make sense to me. I thought they would just start losing on purpose for sure and get the good player out of it, but they didn't do that, and we'll see how that works out for them. But so let's talk about how we dig the Eagles out of this pit, how we get them back to being Super Bowl contenders. I think that they got to do a lot of trading, a lot of cutting, a lot of trading, a lot of reworking of this roster. Old players got to go. Players with decent contracts that can still play in the NFL need to be traded. And just bring in new younger players, cheaper players, draft picks. That's what we need. That's what we need. And the practice squad has worked so far. So I'm not saying rely on the practice squad, because at the end of the day they are the practice squad, right? But keep that depth. That depth is really nice. The ability to turn to the practice squad and say, Richard Rodgers, come here. Quez Watkins, come here. Greg Ward, come here. That aspect of it is really nice and honestly a luxury in the NFL to have. So they need to keep that up. I don't know what they're necessarily really doing to do that, to have such a good practice squad, but it's definitely a luxury in the NFL to have, because you look at some other teams like maybe the 49ers this year who've really struggled with injuries, and they just didn't have anyone to rely to. So to have that practice squad to lean back on sometimes is very nice to have. So keep that up. And then, honestly, and I've thought long and hard about this, as a very big on and off the field Carson Wentz fan, I get monthly newsletters about his foundation. I have his jersey. I've greatly considered buying merchandise from his organization, things like that. Followed him on and off the field. I'm gonna be real, and it stinks. It stinks, and I wish it wasn't like this. But they got to get rid of him. They have to trade him, and it really does stink saying that. And I wish it was not the case, but it just has to happen at this point. And I wrote down 2 things to talk about off of that. First off, teams that would be a good fit for him. There's 2 that come to mind immediately for me. It's the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. Both have really great coaching staffs that I think Carson Wentz would really gel into nicely. I think if it wasn't this year, maybe next year that this fallout with Carson Wentz happened, I think that the New York Giants would be an interesting spot for him to go to. I just don't feel like at this point New York would be willing to give up on Daniel Jones like that. So for right now, Colts and Patriots are the 2 teams I would be looking at for him to go to. And I think the Colts are the best fit. And the reason for that, Frank Wright, he's over in Indianapolis now. He's doing a great job as head coach. And you look at Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is really Phillip Rivers with a little bit more mobility. That's really who he is. So not a lot of the offensive scheme over in Indianapolis would have to change. And obviously, Frank Wright, he's already worked with Carson Wentz for 2 years. He's led him to that should have been MVP season So why not? Why not go back and reunite and do great things over there? And if that happens, either team, because they're both in the AFC, I wish Carson Wentz the best of luck. I hope that he does great over there. For now he is still an Eagle, and I think that I don't think that I don't think that the door in Philadelphia has shut completely. I think that it's just at a small little sliver at this point open, but he still has a chance to slide in. He would have to do some amazing things in the offseason, but to impress this front office and coaching staff. But I don't think his time is for certain over in Philly, but it is it's beginning to become very, very narrow. So I just think for the betterment of the team and to allow new coaching staff to come in and to really empty out that cap space, you would have to trade the guy. So moving on to other areas of the coaching staff, I think that when you look at the head coaching position with Doug Peterson, we discussed this a little while back on the podcast about if the Eagles make the playoffs or not, whether he should get another chance. And I said then that if the Eagles don't make the playoffs in this division, he should be fired. And that was it really just made sense back then, because, the division still stinks. This is a terrible division, and the fact that we were unable to win it is really atrocious and embarrassing. But I think that you give him one more year, and you give him one more year under fair terms. You hire him an offensive coordinator, you take the play calling away from him, and you allow him to be a head coach. That's what he's there to be, a head coach, not an offensive coordinator. Not any of that. He's there to be a head coach. So let him have one season as a head coach. He has to make the playoffs next year. If he's still here next year, which I think he will be, he has to make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs next year, everyone's gone. I think Howie Roseman is gone. I think that Doug Peterson's gone. If Jim Schwartz is still there, I don't know what they're doing, but he will be gone. Yeah. So I say give him one more year, and then we'll make significant changes if they continue with this trend the team has been taking this season. All right, moving on to our third and final sports topic, the NBA. NBA is finally back. I'm super excited. I love basketball. They're all really up there and close, but it's one of the best sporting events to go to. I think they're all kind of unique and all are really great, but I think the NBA is probably the best family sporting event to go to. It's just such a fun atmosphere and entertaining throughout. It's not super duper long, and everyone can be involved in it because. And understand the game, because the game is a very simple concept. There's not a lot of really confusing rules, and the team rosters are small, and the stars are big stars, and you know who LeBron James is, and you know who Steph Curry is. It's not hard to identify each player, and you're able to get a better understanding of both the teams as well, which is pretty nice. So I feel like it's just a good family sport and a good family sport to watch. And the Sixers are doing, I wouldn't say surprisingly well. This first week, I feel like record wise, they're doing surprisingly well. But I think as a team, just with performance, they're meeting expectations, which is good to see. But right now they are 4-1. They just beat the Orlando Magic in dominating fashion as well, 116-92. They were up by as much as double in as early as the second quarter. So that puts them at a 3-way tie in the Eastern Conference at 4-1 against both the Pacers and the Magic that they just beat. So really looking good to start. The issues that they need to address right now. The big players just need to step up. They have 3 stars on this team, and they go in the following order, in my opinion, and both with my opinion and contracts. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Tobias Harris. And I think right now only one is exceeding expectations, and that's Tobias Harris. He's done a great job this season. He's been the team's leading scorer most games. I wouldn't say that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are underperforming right now, but I feel like they could do more. I feel like Embiid could do more defensively. I think that Ben Simmons has done a really good job this season defensively, but could do more offensively. And I think that's also just kind of the fact that they had a really short offseason, and even when they were together last season, it was really broken up into a long stretch with a big break in the middle. So they haven't had a lot of time to gel with this new team and this new roster. So I think that will kind of come with time, that they will fit in more with the team, if you will. Also, Seth Curry was a great addition to this team, and it really shows that the shooting was missing. I mean, it's been obvious the last couple of years they've really struggled with three-point shooting on the team. They have, in years past, really just tried to I feel like what they've done in the last few years is they've like just taken what they've had, tried to run with it for a couple of weeks or months, and then try to grab a guy in free agency or through a trade midway to add in. With you look at that with like Marco Bellinelli and the other guy they had with him that one season, and Furkan Korkmaz and Landry Shamet and all of those kind of guys. That's what they've kind of been doing with just grabbing guys out of nowhere mid-season, throwing them in for a little bit of extra three-point shooting after realizing that, the roster we have that now doesn't have a lot of shooters. We should probably change that. So Seth Curry was a great addition. Danny Green also helps a lot. But the other night they played the Raptors. It was a close game throughout. They were losing almost the entire game until like the last 3 minutes when they started coming back. And then Seth Curry hit in my opinion, game-clinching 3-point shot with a little less than 2 minutes left. They were up by 2, and that extended them to a 5-point lead, and then they ran off with it and won that game. So he's already proven to be a great addition, and I think it just shows what great a job this new front office and coaching staff has been doing. Daryl Morey has been great, and we actually have a coach now in Doc Rivers. So I think so far it's a lot to be excited and happy about with the Sixers. I don't think they're at title status just yet, but as I said just a minute ago, give this team the time to gel and really figure one another out, and I think they can do great things. All right, so final topic now, non-sports related. We'll start with sports and then we'll move into something that's non-sports related. And I'm going to be honest, and this is something that I've considered heavily with this podcast. It was going to be one of two things. It was either going to be a strictly sports podcast that I was going to do, or it was going to be half sports, half politics. Because outside of this podcast and outside of like even most of my public life, I am super into politics. I know it's weird. I'm a high school student, and like almost all of them they don't really care at all about politics. But I'm super into politics. I really enjoy following that kind of stuff. But I decided I'm going to keep it out of this podcast completely, and I wanted to keep this podcast as much sports related as possible. And what I'm going to go into in just a moment, it's not politics related, but it's also not sports related. But that's a promise I want to give to y'all as well. I'm going to do my very best to keep this podcast as strictly sports related as possible for you guys, because that's what you guys are here for. And I think that sports in general could do a lot more of that as well. Just keeping it as sports, because that's what we all know and love. We love sports to be sports, and we love politics to be politics. I don't want Joe Biden and Donald Trump to be in a boxing match or play hockey against one another. That's not what I'm there for. So that's my promise to y'all. I'm gonna keep this sports podcast a sports podcast. But let's talk about 2020. Let's talk about how this year's been for both me personally and with Philadelphia sports. And I'm not gonna go too in depth. I'm not gonna go too long. But it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year for everyone. It's been a tough year for Philadelphia sports. Briefly just hit on big disappointments, I would say, for Philadelphia teams this year. But on a positive note, I think that not only do all of the Philadelphia teams have an opportunity to do better in 2021, but I bet you that all 5 of them will do better in 2021. You look at the Phillies; they didn't make the playoffs this year. They had the worst bullpen in MLB history. I think next year, they'll make the playoffs, and they will not have the worst bullpen in MLB history. So there's something to look forward to there. You look at the Flyers; they had NHL Stanley Cup title hopes this year, and then they had an early playoff exit that was kind of shocking and pretty heartbreaking. But I think that they found a great goalkeeper, and I think they actually, they definitely have the greatest chance of any Pennsylvania team of winning a championship in 2021. So that's something to really look forward to if you're a hockey fan in Philadelphia, is the fact that the Flyers, they're good. They're good again, which is awesome to see, because they haven't won a title in 45 years. So it's been a long wait, and I think it'll be well-deserved if and hopefully when it happens. The Eagles, losing record, very losing record, no playoff berth. I wouldn't even say potential. I think it's definitely a quarterback controversy this team has now, which stinks. But here's what I can promise. Here's what I can promise you in 2021: they will have a better record. I certainly hope they make the playoffs, and I don't think there will be a quarterback controversy by the end of 2021. So there's that to look forward to. Sixers, 2020, they were just meh, which is not what their expectation was. They were nothing special, nothing exciting. The lack of coaching was a big deal for them, I think, and I think we're seeing that automatically with the new coaching staff for the Sixers this year. They actually have a head coach that is willing to actually coach and actually discipline and actually coach and actually coach. So there's that to look forward to. The fact that they are actually a full and complete basketball team now with shooting and coaching. And Penn State, yikes, where do we begin? Oh my goodness. Here's what I wrote down. I'll read it word for word. Penn State, 4-5, no bowl game. What else do I need to say? There you go. That's my take on Penn State. Holy moly, they better do better in 2021, or my goodness, will that athletic department be on fire, going crazy next year about what to do. So as far as the world goes, obviously coronavirus, lockdowns, stress was at an all-time high. We had a very, very controversial election, both with the candidates and the results and all that. No matter what side you're on, I think we all felt a lot of stress with that. But my encouragement, and this won't sound like encouragement when I first say this, but my encouragement to you guys is this: nothing is going to change in 2021 unless we change, okay? And it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter what the vaccine is. It doesn't matter whether or not there's masks, lockdowns, any of that. Nothing's going to change unless we make the change that will last a lifetime, that will last for eternity. I'm not gonna preach this every single podcast for you guys. I'm gonna keep this as sports related as possible, but I wanted to leave you guys in 2020 with this word of encouragement for you guys. In Jeremiah 29:11, the Bible says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. plans to give you hope and a future. My New Year's resolution back in 2019 for 2020 was I came to the realization I'm a believer in Christ. I'm a Christian, but I came to the realization that I'm just simply not reading my Bible enough. And so my New Year's resolution was to read just simply one chapter, about 5 minutes a night, of the Bible every single day. And I was able to complete that. And I gotta say, it really helped me get through 2020 a lot. There's a lot of wisdom I learned from it. If you're a believer, I would highly suggest you read books like Proverbs and Isaiah and Romans and even Revelation. I think those books had a huge impact for me this year, really helped me keep my spirits high, kept me down the right path, and filled me with wisdom that I needed. And if you're not a believer, I would like to encourage you with two things. I hope that you have a Bible in your household or wherever you live. If not, everyone has a phone. Bible app is completely free and takes like 15 seconds to download. I encourage you, 10 minutes a night for 1 week, read the book of John. 10 minutes a night for 1 week. Take the time, actually digest what it's saying, and understand what it's saying instead of just skimming over it and letting the words go in one ear and leave the other. Actually take the time, dissect it, understand what it's saying, and if you do it correctly, it's going to change your life forever, and you're never going to regret it. And the second thing I would encourage you with is I hope that you have at least one friend or relative or loved one or someone you know, maybe a coworker, that is also a believer. And I would challenge you, honestly, in 2021 as a New Year's resolution to just go up to them and to challenge them as well. Ask them about their faith. Ask them about why they're a Christian and get to know why they believe the way they do. And I think if you just take a little bit of time, learn about what it's like to be a Christian, what it means to be in a relationship with Jesus Christ, that'll change your life as well. And if for some reason you guys out there listening do not have someone in your life to talk to about Jesus Christ, simply leave a comment with a question, or even just asking, tell me a little bit about your faith walk on either YouTube or SoundCloud. I don't check the SoundCloud comments enough as I should, but on YouTube I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible. So just leave a comment asking any sort of question you may have about it. I'd love to help you out, and I think that 2021 is going to be a great year for Christianity as a whole, and I think that we're going to see God move in ways that I can't fathom. When I sat there in March at the beginning of this coronavirus craziness, and I thought about why is this happening, I came to the realization no one knows. I have no idea, but God does. And one day, hopefully in the near future, he's going to use this somehow, some way for his good and for his glory. And I can't wait to see that day come, because it's going to be mind-blowing and amazing. And my hope is that millions of people will be saved because of it. So, again, if you have any questions or comments or anything you want to challenge me on about faith and about what it's like to be a Christian, please let me know on YouTube or SoundCloud with a comment. I would love to have a great discussion with you about that. But I hope the best for all of you guys in 2021. I think it's going to be a great year, both for everyone personally and for Philadelphia sports. I'm looking forward to it, and God bless. You guys have a great